Steven said he's interested in presenting his work are the rhythms and the patterns. And if you come onto the side and look this way at the artwork, it's much different than viewing it from the front. I noticed some of you, bless you, I think it was you, and I forget who it was, were looking behind the tapestries. And guess what? I wrote poems about that too. So try to find the poems that are about about looking behind the artwork as well, because it's a totally different work of art from the other side. So I put this is a little exercise in rhythm, okay? And you're going to be my get your paint cans here group, okay? So can you clap that rhythm with me? Get your paint cans here. Get your paint cans here. Say it along with me. See that rhythm in your bodies? They stop. Now I gotta work on my roughly the same size, right? But you might have to work a little bit harder. You're going to be the paint chips for breakfast crew. Okay? So it's paint chips for breakfast. What I'd like you to do is, taking this rhythm, I'd like you to move around the room. Okay? Mingle, look at the art. One of the things I sort of wanted to try was to hear how sound ricochets out of the paint cans. Okay? So let me get you guys started. Here we go.
I kind of got lost. I didn't really hear the rhythms anymore. It felt to me like different beats, and then I thought of heartbeats, and then I thought of all the different paint cans and how they're all different. I just I thought that was a cool connection that I made. So.
Okay, well, I noticed that the rhythm kind of seemed to go with the colors. Like, if you looked at the colors while doing the rhythm, it, like, I don't know, I guess I kind of connect visual with like audio. Is like the colors, each color would seem to pop as a beat was going. So, like, the 1, 2, 3, you know, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 was kind of making each little different color pop, especially with how they're not uniform and they're all kind of skipping around.
Thanks for coming, everybody. The opening really was quite nice. I mean, it was packed in here for hours, and I had a number of students, none that I recognize here, come up to me and say, "Well, I was told that I had to go to an art show, so I just decided I'd go to this one." And then they stuck around, you know, so they seemed to enjoy it. I've been making art. Well, I drew all my life. I spent my time as when I was very young, and I used to draw constantly. But I never took an art class because I was more interested in sports, and I played sports all through school and into college. And so art wasn't something that really seemed to align itself with my other interests. So it wasn't until I was in college that I had to take an art class. It was required, and Mary Harrington was taking sculpture, so I followed her in. And that was my first experience with an art class, and I found that I loved it. My association with art lasted much longer than my association with Mary Harrington. But it led to ceramics. Sculpture class led to ceramics, and then I decided that I was going to be a potter, and I did that for a few years and went to Indiana University for a graduate degree in ceramics, and then to University of Southern California for a graduate degree in sculpture, and then to George Washington University for a graduate degree in education, because what I found was I couldn't make a living making art. And I needed a job, and teaching was the best way to go, and it provided me with summers off. Well, so my degree from GW was in severely emotionally disturbed adolescents. So that's what I had been teaching for years. I got an opportunity to start an art program in PG County for kids who were emotionally disturbed, a lot of aggressive and violent behaviors and things of that sort. And it meant that we did a lot of restraints as well. And so when I turned about, I don't know, when I got to be in my late 40s, about 50, I found that during the restraints I was hitting the ground first. This is not the way that you want to be spending your later years. Margaret had suggested to me at one point that I might want to come to Frederick County and teach art. And the thought was that I was going to come to the high school that Margaret was at, Linganore High School, and I was going to start a sculpture program. Well, by the time that all came together, she left. I got there, found that I was probably better suited to teaching kids who were emotionally disturbed than, I'd never had students listen to me before. And so I went into an art class, and I'm teaching art, and they're hanging on every word. And I thought, oh my God, I don't know what to tell them. So I went back to special ed, where I've been now for the last 5 years. And what that led to was we were doing various projects around town in Frederick. And one of the projects we were doing was we were painting stairwells of the Delaplane, which is the visual arts center in downtown Frederick. And we were painting them with the complementary colors. And so as we finished a section and the paint can would be emptied, I started looking at these empty paint cans. And then I started collecting them. And I collected about 825 paint cans. And they've now, they're not all in this show, obviously, but they've taken different forms. I had a show at a gallery in New York called Causey Contemporary, and I did a piece there that was about 500 paint cans on a wall. It wouldn't fit in any of the spaces around here, but it was about 17 or 18 feet long and about 10 feet tall and along the wall. And the closest to it, it looks similar to this in terms of presentation, where the color was all facing out. The cans were all against the wall. So this piece, the reason I'm starting here is because this is similar to the first ideas that I had about how to use the paint cans. After that, I started to think about, you're left with, when you have 820 some paint cans to empty, you end up with a lot of paint can lids. So this piece over here, you guys are going to have to move around to see it. But this piece over here was a result of having all of these lids. And this piece is called The Colors of Our Lives, because what you find when you're opening paint cans, and I went around, I collected paint cans from everyone. I put notices in people's mailbox. I asked friends, what did they have, and they gave me paint cans, and I ended up, most of them are whites or off-whites. That's what most people are comfortable with. So when I would find a color, in a paint can that was not white, I would save it and then pour that color into other cans so that I could have more of those. But, so the lids led to, one after another, and they became like quilts. And so I started to see them as quilts, and then actually when I showed this up in New York, and a writer up there referred to them as tapestries, as metallic tapestries. So I stole that and then started calling them reclamation tapestries, because I called this project Reclamation initially, and now it's Reclamation Variation. It's been in 3 different shows and 3 different incarnations, because depending on what the space gives you determines sometimes how it is you present the work. So the piece that's behind you right there was initially going to be sort of the centerpiece of the show. It was going to be the installation that I was going to do for this space. And I was going to, you can see this angle right here with the big window. My initial idea was to come in with, hundreds of paint cans. I was going to mimic that shape. So I was going to line the paint cans up here and there, and then on that side of the wall it was going to be the inverse. So that it was going to be like a V cut out there, and the cans were going to go up from there. So we got in here on a while ago, started doing it, and it was, I don't know how many hours in, and stepped back, and it just stunk. It's like you have this idea of how something's going to look and how it's going to work, and you're so sure that it's going to be great, and you come in and you execute it, and it's horrible. It was horrible. And so my friend who was with me and I both recognized this, and we sat down on the floor and thought, now what? This was the idea. This was the big idea. And so we started taking stuff away from it and making shapes out of the cans that were on the wall. The only thing that's left from that is this shape. So I got so frustrated with it that I decided to leave it alone. Obviously, since this side failed, I couldn't do what I had planned for that side. So I had an opportunity then, and this is also the kind of thing that happens when you're doing an installation. I had an opportunity then to do a piece that was mostly whites and off-whites and muted colors and earth tones, and put that up. And then the idea of cutting the cans on the edge so I could square it up came to me. So I spent a fair amount of time doing that. As a matter of fact, I